The snow fell gently on the quiet park, each flake catching the warm glow of the Christmas lights strung through the bare branches. Marcus Chen sat alone on the wooden bench, watching his breath form small clouds in the cold December air. The paper bag of groceries rested beside him, forgotten for the moment. At 35, Marcus had built an empire. His tech company employed thousands. His penthouse overlooked the city skyline, and his bank account had more zeros than most people could count. Yet here he was, sitting in a park at 7 in the evening, avoiding the emptiness of his luxury apartment. The board meeting had ended hours ago. The dinner reservation he'd made for himself at the city's most exclusive restaurant had been canceled again. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd shared a meal with someone who wasn't discussing quarterly reports or merger possibilities. The soft crunch of snow under small feet made him look up. A little girl approached slowly, her blonde hair braided with ribbons that matched her pink winter dress. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Her cheeks were rosy from the cold, and she clutched a small stuffed rabbit against her chest. "Excuse me, mister," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus straightened, surprised. He looked around the nearly empty park, wondering where her parents might be. "Yes, sweetheart." The little girl took another step closer, her blue eyes wide and serious. "Are you sad too?" The question caught him off guard. Marcus had perfected the art of hiding his emotions behind boardroom smiles and confident handshakes. But somehow, this small child had seen right through him. "Maybe a little," he admitted quietly. "Are you sad?" She nodded solemnly. "My mommy is working again tonight. She has 2 jobs, and she's always tired. I'm staying with Mrs. Peterson from next door, but she fell asleep watching TV." Marcus felt a pang in his chest. "What's your name?" "Emma," she said, shifting the stuffed rabbit to one arm. "What's yours, Marcus?" He smiled, the first genuine smile he'd worn all week. "That's a pretty rabbit you have there." Emma looked down at her toy. "His name is Mr. Whiskers. Mommy gave him to me when I was 3. She paused, then looked back up at Marcus with those impossibly earnest blue eyes. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." Emma took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "Can you be my daddy for one night?" Marcus froze. The words hit him like a physical blow. Stirring emotions he'd buried deep beneath years of corporate success and personal isolation. He stared at this small girl, this brave little soul who had just asked for the one thing he'd never thought he wanted, and suddenly realized he wanted more than anything. "Emma," he said carefully, "where exactly is Mrs. Peterson's house?" She pointed toward a row of modest apartments visible through the trees. "The yellow one with the Christmas wreath. She's nice, but she doesn't know how to make hot chocolate the right way. And she doesn't read bedtime stories with different voices like Mommy does." Marcus felt his heart breaking and healing at the same time. What would a daddy do for one night? Emma's face lit up with hope. Well, he might help make dinner, and maybe watch a Christmas movie, and read a story before bedtime. She paused thoughtfully, and he wouldn't be checking his phone all the time like the grown-ups always do. That last comment made Marcus glance down at his phone, which had been buzzing with notifications he'd been ignoring. He turned it face down on the bench. "You know what, Emma?" Marcus said, standing up and offering her his hand. "I think I'd like to try being a daddy for one night. But first, We should probably check with Mrs. Peterson, don't you think? Emma nodded eagerly and slipped her small hand into his larger one. The simple contact sent warmth through Marcus that had nothing to do with temperature. They walked through the softly falling snow toward the best yellow apartment. Mrs. Peterson, a kind-faced woman in her 70s, answered the door with obvious relief when she saw Emma. "Oh, thank goodness. I must have dozed off for just a moment, and when I woke up, she was gone." Mrs. Peterson looked questioningly at Marcus. "I'm Marcus Chen," he said simply. "Emma and I met in the park. She asked if I could spend some time with her tonight, if that's all right with you. I'd be happy to help with dinner and getting her ready for bed." Mrs. Peterson studied his face carefully. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she smiled. "Emma's been talking all week about wishing she had a daddy for Christmas. Her mother Sarah works so hard, but it's just the two of them." She looked down at Emma, who was still holding Marcus's hand. "Would you like that, sweetheart?" Emma nodded vigorously. "Yes, please." And so Marcus found himself in a small, warm kitchen, learning how to make proper hot chocolate from a 6-year-old who stood on a chair to reach the stove. Emma showed him how her mother added just a tiny bit of vanilla and how she always put the marshmallows in after, never before. They made simple grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner, which Emma declared were the best daddy sandwiches ever, even though Marcus had slightly burned the edges. They sat at the small table, Emma chattering about school and her friends and her plans to be a veterinarian when she grew up. "Do you have any kids, Marcus?" Emma asked, as she dipped her sandwich in her soup. "No," he said quietly. "I always thought I was too busy for children." "Well, you're not too busy tonight," Emma said matter-of-factly. "And you're really good at being a daddy. You listen with your whole face, not just your ears." After dinner, they settled on the couch to watch the Polar Express. Emma curled up against Marcus's side, Mr. Whiskers tucked between them. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd watched a movie without checking emails or thinking about work. Tonight, all his attention was on the little girl beside him and the magical story unfolding on screen. When Emma's eyes began to droop, Marcus carried her to the small bedroom Mrs. Peterson had prepared. The room was simple but cozy, with glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling and drawings taped to the walls. "Will you read me a story?" Emma asked sleepily as Marcus tucked her under the covers. He found a well-worn copy of Goodnight Moon on the nightstand and began to read, giving each character a different voice, just as Emma had requested. By the time he reached the end, she was fast asleep, one small hand still clutching Mr. Whiskers. Marcus sat quietly for a moment, watching her peaceful face in the soft glow of the nightlight. Something fundamental had shifted inside him tonight. The emptiness he'd carried for years felt different, no, not gone, but transformed into possibility. He slipped out of the room and found Mrs. Peterson waiting with a cup of tea and a knowing smile. "She's something special, that little girl," the older woman said softly. "Yes, she is," Marcus agreed. "Mrs. Peterson, would it be possible for me to meet Emma's mother? I'd like to talk to her about maybe being around more often." Mrs. Peterson's eyes twinkled. "Sarah gets home from her second job around 11. I think she'd be very surprised to hear about tonight." Marcus pulled out one of his business cards and wrote his personal number on the back. Could you give this to her? Tell her that Emma gave me something tonight I didn't even know I was missing." As Marcus walked back through the snowy park toward his car, he felt lighter than he had in years. His phone was still buzzing with urgent messages, but for once they could wait. He had discovered something more important than any business deal or profit margin. He had learned what it felt like to be needed, not for his money or his connections, but simply for his presence, his attention, and his willingness to make hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Tomorrow he would call Sarah. Tonight he had been a daddy, and it had changed everything.